Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Friday. It is April the 4th, and I appreciate you coming along for a friendly Friday, which means we're going to have Steve Friend, also known as the real Steve Friend, joining me in just one moment. Before we do, let's kind of get a little taste of what we're getting into today. Apparently, the major issue across all media platforms, it's tariffs. It's tariffs. They're everywhere. They're causing things. They're destroying the stock market or whatever. We'll get into why that is going to be maybe a temporary thing. We're going to talk tariffs. We're going to talk about some of the other things that are going on. We're going to talk historical perspectives from people who are losing their ever-loving minds about tariffs. Let's go back to 1996. We're going to go to 2008. We're going to talk to as recently as 2018 on people who seem to think that they are the end of the world that didn't think that previously. Go figure. People in politics changing their position on something because now they don't like the orange man bad. That's what we're going to do. Also, get some job numbers from March, which are fairly favorable. It's almost like the narrative going the other way doesn't make that much sense. RFK is destroying the healthcare system. Yeah, all of the sky is falling positions. And maybe, just maybe, the solution is because of racism, which may or may not make black women fat, we should just scrap the Constitution. So that's Friday's piece, kind of a grab bag taste, but it's going to have an overwhelming theme of we're living in a ridiculous time, and I've got a great palate cleanse to be able to send you off into your weekend. We're going to bring the Steve Friend on shortly, but before we do, let's talk about what's getting me riled up right now, and it's Blackout Coffee. Yeah, I've been telling you about them for what, maybe a couple months now? You guys told me about Blackout Coffee before I even knew, and at this point, if you haven't tried it, let's break it down. It's not just another coffee brand. It's a coffee brand that's built on American hard work, grit, values that we all kind of share. 6 years ago, the founders of this company started it in their home garage. Today, they are running a 64,000 square foot roasting facility and warehouse. Every single bean is roasted in-house. It's packed so they can do it themselves. They have vertically integrated that situation, and they are employing over 30 hardworking Americans. No corporate nonsense, just damn good coffee made by people who actually give a damn. In my house, I actually got to do my first today. All my kids and I have shared a small cup of coffee where they get a little splash, a little bit of honey and milk. At an incredibly young age, my 19-month-old sat down and had a little cup with me today. And when it's still dark outside, it's kind of a special moment. Sometimes whether a caffeinated toddler is a good idea is something Mom will have to tell me after the show. Blackout Coffee isn't just making you a great cup of coffee. They're also supporting the American dream. They have built up a company the right way, no shortcuts, no woke nonsense, and no weak beans. If you believe in hard work, American values, and coffee that gets you moving, check out blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Use that code Kyle for 20% off your first order. Keep the American dream alive. Support real coffee and drink Blackout. That is blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Don't drink the weak stuff. Start your day the right way. All right, let's get into it right now. All right, and I've got this guy. Here he is sitting there. Good morning, real Steve Friend. Happy Friday to you, my friend.
Good morning. Happy Friday. Congratulations on your dad victory there. Did you offer the 19-month-old a root beer float with Mountain Dew with the red charge in it, and then, I don't know. I
don't even know what you're
Surge
describing.
As a chaser, and then hand her off to Mom?
I don't do that, no. But you know what's even funnier? My mother joins us in the mornings. A lot of times she hangs out in the chat, and she said, they say cheers, and she's exactly right. She's got two little hands on the cup. She leans over, cheers. She smacks them together, and then she slurps like essentially 98% milk with a splash of coffee flavoring in it. So
my younger son always does a cheers, and he always says, to the chef, including when it's takeout.
Where did he get this? Who's the chef normally? You? Not you.
I mean, unless it involves boiling water for ramen or microwave. I mean, I'm your Huckleberry then.
Okay, fair enough. Speaking of, favorite Val Kilmer movie?
Oh, I mean, you got to say Tombstone as a general rule as a guy. I was actually impressed. He played a role once, and it's killing me. I can't remember the name of it, where he was a blind man who had his sight restored. And it was one of these really interesting ideas where they were trying to put objects in front of him, and he couldn't identify them without touching them. So they would put like a cheese grater in front of him. And he would say measuring cup because he just couldn't make the shape. And I just always thought that was like a really unique.
At First Sight was the name of the movie.
Oh, got me.
Yeah, 1999.
He just had a really a lot of diversity in his catalog, and I think he'll be missed. That's for sure.
Yeah, I called him one of the greatest warriors of the Cold War to Benny Johnson and caught him off guard. Because why not? Okay, should we start with like a lighthearted take on a few things?
Always, it's Friday.
Okay, you're a runner. You're kind of fat looking, aren't you?
Absolutely, dad bod intact.
What do you think your body fat percentage is, Steve?
Low double digits, probably somewhere in the area of like 8.5%. I do Joe Biden math.
Okay, I was gonna say that's single digits. That's what, I've got Joe Biden math coming up in a minute. So actually, well played there. We'll just negotiate about what numbers mean. So okay, so 8-ish, sub double digit body fat. And do you have fatter parents?
No, my parents, including at Sue Friend in the chat here on Rumble, extremely thin, fit. They're just health freaks.
Okay, so it's a health freak thing. Do you think it's just genetic then?
No. I would encourage anybody who get up at 4 o'clock in the morning with me to stretch and then run for 12 miles and then tell me that it's just my genetics.
It's just your genetics. And we have proof now. Here's a doctor talking on 60 Minutes, and you thought it was because you actually went out and ran. If you did nothing, it would still be just as good.
If you diet, you lose weight, right?
The number one cause of obesity is genetics. That means if you are born to parents that have obesity, you have a 50 to 85% likelihood of having the disease yourself, even with optimal diet, exercise, sleep management, stress management. So when people see families that have obesity, the assumption is, what are they feeding those kids?
Can you debunk that real quick?
That's called correlation and not causation. It's probably
Okay.
because the parents are teaching the children bad habits, and the parents are in charge of buying the food for them, and they're giving them the Mountain Dew Red root beer floats as opposed to like the healthy options. It's pretty simple math. I mean, not Joe Biden math. Calories out, calories in. If you have a deficit, you will lose weight mathematically. But that's probably racist.
I was just going to say, isn't that kind of racist to say that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's actually anti-democratic. It's against our sacred democracy to say that exercise and healthy eating will inevitably create a calorie deficit, and ergo, your body will have to eat itself in order to make up that deficit, and you will lose weight.
Yeah, that doesn't check because we're living in the Trump era, and so whatever you just said doesn't sound right.
When people talk about black women being obese, I hate it because it becomes a way to blame us for a set of conditions that we didn't create. We are living in the Trump era. And look, those policies kill our people. And what public health practitioners think is that our stress responses in the body change our metabolism. It's literally that the racism that you're experiencing and the struggle to make ends meet actually means the diet don't work for you the same.
The diet don't work for you the same, but I can't listen to anything she says because she misuses the word literally, and as a result, I'm going to appeal to authority as a pedantic, best-selling author jerk and say that it was not written down, and I can't take anything you say after that on its face as being.
She's also a big fat lady sitting next to thin women who are agreeing with her.
I mean, are they now in the running for the worst people? Are they like the liberal white women standing behind the liberal white man pretending to be a woman?
No, she's just complaining about her circumstances. She's not cutting off her kids' genitals.
She in the Trump era, and as a result of those circumstances, math don't work because it's racist.
You can't do black voices on my show. You're going to get us canceled again. I love, by the way, folks don't understand this, but I will bait Steve Friend into doing his version of a black woman voice, which is it's not far off. Okay.
Look, I mean, I am probably more ghetto than discount Cardi B. I did not go to high tuition private schools. I went to public school in Georgia, and I was an actual minority. I was the only white guy on the basketball team. I was the one at the end of the bench who didn't get to play at all, but I was on the team.
That's fair. Let's start with our first fun story instead of messing around here. Speaking of people who scream into the clouds and impotent rage, this is Judge Boasberg. The judge is now considering whether or not to hold Trump officials in contempt for violating his orders on deportation flights. Steve Friend, I'd like you to explain to me the mechanics, because I understand the reason why somebody would hold somebody in contempt. Explain to me the mechanics of how this plays out IRL versus how it's going to go in that tall, bald guy's head.
Well, how it's going to go IRL is that the Trump administration hopefully will defy the order, and then we will have a message that this is a constitutional crisis, because now the executive branch is not listening to the most powerful branch, apparently, which is the judiciary, which then begs the question, and I think it would be an interesting political strategy, not simply just tongue-in-cheek for a Friendly Friday. Should Donald Trump resign the presidency today and then have J.D. Vance appoint him to be a district court judge so he could be the most powerful man in America?
And then just make decisions that he likes?
Sure. That comports with what Judge Boasberg is pushing forward, right?
I heard you float this the other day on your AMRAD pod, and as I listened to it, I went, that is snarky and obviously ridiculous, but it points out the absurdity. It's an
April Fool's-esque realpolitik observation.
It's reductio ad absurdum, where you basically reduce the argument to its core and most ridiculous point, and you destroy it by the fact that there's no one that would actually believe this sort of thing. It is their version of constitutional crisis, though, because what you're asking mechanically, right? The judge would have to make this order. Who would be the ones that would carry it out? Marshals?
Yes, who are working for the executive branch. Because
they roll up to the DOJ, and the DOJ is run by Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi was hired by Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the president. That's all Article 2.
That's why whenever Congress holds the Attorney General in contempt, like they did to Merrick Garland, there was no enforcement of that because the Department of Justice wasn't going to investigate their boss.
Right. The center of the case is Trump's invocation of the sweeping wartime authority. It actually isn't a sweeping wartime authority, by the way. Have you read the statute? Have you looked into the Alien Enemies Act and just read the plain words?
A little bit. I've mostly relied on Stephen Miller, which I think is pretty close to what the letter of the law is, though.
It's almost spot on, but it's predatory invasion. It doesn't require a declaration of war. It's an or statement. The delineation in legal terms is really specific. It's and means both conditions have to be met, or means either.
And in effect, he makes a really good analogy of the president as a commander-in-chief has ultimate authority over the military and can command troops into battle to actually go through tactical motions, right? So a judge, therefore, can't rule in on the president making decisions for, we're going to take the left flank over here, because that's completely within the purview of the chief executive, the commander-in-chief. So if the judge here is intruding on the Alien Enemies Act, which is solely at the discretion of the president, it's no different than the judge saying, well, I'm going to actually control the troop movements. I'm going to say what you're doing. I'm going to put an injunction on that, a universal injunction on whether or not you can drop a Moab on our enemy.
Goofy enough, there's actually an entire section under 50 USC 23. So it's Chapter 3, Section 23. It actually delineates what the judges can adjudicate and what they can't. And it actually states it's only the legality of the law itself. Like they just don't have the ability to enforce any of the other pieces. Anyway, I like the contempt order. I like the idea of judges getting hit with sort of impotent rage. It's like screaming racism about being fat. You can say it.
This guy is getting an incredibly large percentage of these cases being brought to him. And theoretically in this jurisdiction, there's 15 judges. I mean, they're all communists. So I think one of them is actually named Sparkle, which should be fun.
Whoa.
But he seems to get an inordinate amount, a disproportional amount seemed to fall in his lap, including things like in the past where it came to sentencing Kevin Kleinsmith, right? I think he was actually responsible for the FISA warrants against Donald Trump. He's been around for a long time. And look, impeaching him is just kind of a fool's errand. It would take years and political capital that's just not worth doing. You would never get 67 senators to do it. But of course, we could have the House say that this is a lesser court and we could defund it. But of course, then we have to have arguments about whether or not women are allowed to Zoom vote in Congress instead of actually addressing important things, because it's a ridiculous theater here at the federal level of government.
If you want to kind of have a moment of uniparty He was originally appointed to any federal bench that was going to be the Superior Court in D.C., which is essentially like a local court. For people that don't understand how D.C. courts work, it's worth pointing out. This is the reason why the J6ers got screwed so badly, because they went to district court instead of Superior Court. Superior Court's like getting charged for a local crime, so you have a DA and so on. In D.C., because it's a federal jurisdiction, you've got both of them are federal. So the federal prosecutor can choose either to charge you at a local level or to an upper level. And so he was originally put into the bench in the Superior Court, lower, George W. Bush, and then elevated to the D.C. circuit by Barack Obama.
This is
and
because
as you said, he's been there since 01.
Was able to drink cocktails at enough Federalist Society parties because these guys are institutionalists. Like that's what John Roberts is ultimately. People can say, "Oh, he's a Republican appointee. Oh, he's really a secret communist." He believes in the authority of the court, and whatever decision has to come down from him to preserve what he's got and preserve in the eyes of the American people that the Supreme Court and the judiciary in general is the ultimate authority on things. That's what he's going to push forward. It's always the same thing. It goes back to originally what the founding fathers established. They wanted and hoped that there was going to be interests in these three branches of government that worked against each other, that kept each other in check. But unfortunately, as it particularly comes to Article 1, the legislative authority, they came to the realization that we can outsource all of our duties and responsibilities and then shrug our shoulders and say, look, we can't really do anything about it. You can't really blame me for it, except you can re-elect me. That'd be great. And you can get lots of content then. I'll give you lots of cable news hits, or maybe I'll start a podcast, or I'll have a Twitter account.
You know what's funny? I saw this morning. Chuck Grassley said that he really needs to have the Restriction of Federal Judges Act that he's put out there. That needs to be passed. By the way, Chuck Grassley tweets without any punctuation, and I can't decide whether it's actually Chuck Grassley sitting in there with his 91-year-old fingers typing into a phone or on a keyboard, or whether it's an intern pretending to be him and just not using punctuation to make it look like he doesn't know how to use a keyboard. Either way, I don't like it.
Chuck Grassley was elected to be a representative of the people in Congress when our vice president was negative 9 years old.
The 1975 was when he first went to Congress.
He was around during the first FDR administration.
He was actually in government at the state level before my mother was born.
But he's sharp as a tack, which is
Everybody
a
says
qualifier
so.
that you have to give to anybody who is too old to be in office.
Yeah, what's funny is he almost was in office long enough to have dealt with the original Administrative Procedures Act, which is in fact the real problem, right? 1946. So
he was old enough to at least have an opinion on it.
Yeah, no, he was totally alive and could have been actually reading the newspaper articles talking about how Congress gave away their power to the executive branch. That's the funniest thing. They want to claw back little pieces of it that they've given away to the judiciary, but the biggest piece of power that Congress gave away happened with the APA. If you guys don't know about that, there's plenty of podcasts we've done about it. We'll bring it back up another time, but very wild to see this guy like trying to make this argument, and it doesn't ring true to me. How about this argument? Far right. Actually, I want to see this. Let's put it on the screen. National Security Council staffers were fired. This is related to Signalgate, supposedly, or this is at least in the same thread of Signalgate. Were fired because Donald Trump met with quote unquote far right activist Laura Loomer by sources, which Trump, by the way, he debunked this. He was like, nah, I talked to her. Sometimes I like what she says. Sometimes I don't. You can imagine that's true. What does the spectrum look like, though, of far right, center right, center left, left, and who is far left? This is CBS, CNN reported the same way. Can you give me what the spectrum looks like?
I don't believe that they would ever characterize anyone as far left. That's just a left-leaning, moderate, reasonable voice in the room, right? Anybody to the right of that, including like a Scott Jennings, who was an advisor to Glitch McConnell, is a far-right, bordering on fascist, possibly a sycophant of the orange, literally Hitler, who is, in effect, a Democrat from New York from the 1990s.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so we're on the same page here. So 3 staffers, CBS covered this story and said that they weren't just fired, they were purged. I also find language very interesting. You remember Jim Jordan talking about ideological purges? There's an article that came out, and this is it was in my extra hopper of things. ACLU is suing the National Institute of Health right now for a quote unquote ideological purge. I feel like they've stolen our language, that they've co-opted it into trying to get people behind them. Maybe they saw some success in moving the ball forward. They have lawsuits saying that 670 research grants were canceled. $1.1 billion in funding not going to be given out to people that we don't like. And it's an ideological purge. What do you make of that word, out of curiosity? Just pinging it against you for the first time.
I mean, it's a loaded language situation. It's like using the word extremist. I mean, because it has those negative connotations. Oh, nobody wants to be an extremist. Nobody wants to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and run 12 miles. That's extreme. I mean, you're probably a terrorist if you do that.
Just to be 100% fair with you.
I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable in my own skin because there's not a lot of body fat there between that and my organs.
It's just you and the skin. Yeah. There's nothing there protecting you from the cold.
Purge, though, is similarly loaded, right? I mean, you're just firing people who are not on board with the mission. I mean, that's a completely reasonable thing to do if you're in a private sector business. I mean, if you come in and take over a company and somebody says, I'm not on board with what you want, okay, we're just gonna have to part ways with you. I mean, that's reasonable. But purge makes it sound like it's something nefarious afoot here. And it's also based on the presupposition that those people are entitled to that job. It's not, in fact, doing a job that's worth doing. They don't care about that. It's just that they have it, and ergo, they must always have it until they won't want it anymore. And at that point, then we just pay them a pension for the rest of their life.
Little sidebar here, because it occurred to me, the ideological purge, that was something we talked about going on inside the FBI. That was the danger of it. It's like if you weren't on board. And there is a quote unquote entitlement to your job, at least that we're told that and unless you're on the wrong side of the administration. And then if you're also, the next administration doesn't have the balls to go through and do it. We made an announcement. This is the week of April Fools. So that feels like it was 1,000 years ago already, but it was only 4 or 5 days ago. I announced that you and Garrett O'Boyle had been rehired into the FBI with full back pay and benefits and had been made whole and were now promoted. How many people did we fool, out of curiosity? And what do you think that meant?
Well, I think that it meant that you got captured.
When I
the
say
true
we, sorry,
spirit.
let me take full responsibility. You didn't fool anybody. That wasn't your doing.
No.
I do these things completely without anybody else's permission. I just send things out there into the world because I think they're funny.
I was not aware that you had done this until I got a phone call from Alan Fuhr at the New York Times.
Tell me more.
So you captured the true spirit of what makes a good April Fool's. Mostly April Fool's is like horrible because it's always the worst people playing the worst jokes. They're saying like, guess what? Your mom died. Ha ha, April Fool's. Like, that's not funny, man. Right? But you captured what the true spirit is, and you pointed out something that is completely believable, perhaps should be a true thing, and ergo people wanted to believe it because there's a lot of hopium out there, especially in the first 100 days of the new Trump administration. And the absurdity of the fact that Garrett O'Boyle is still 2.5 years unpaid, indefinitely suspended, it would make a lot of sense to you to snap your fingers, stroke of a pen, and put that guy back on the payroll. And now we were able to fool people like Miranda Devine reached out to me from the New York Post. I mean, she didn't say anything publicly. She just wanted to confirm it. Alan Fuhr, I mean, I'm not really a fan of the New York Times or of Alan particularly, but he reached out to me directly because he wanted to confirm it because that's what journalists are supposed to do. But we had other people online who were just right away giving us the thumbs up and an America flag, right? You had, I think Schellenberger did, I think Project Veritas did. I mean, there were some prominent people who were really excited. And other people
General
that reached
Michael
out
Flynn. Mike Flynn said, okay, now we got them in. Now we got to do more. We got to get Robin Grizz back. And it's like, dude, check the calendar, homie. Come on, General.
I have the ability to directly contact Mike Flynn, and I just thought, a couple of days had passed, and I hoped that it had gotten to his ears. I didn't want to rub in the fact that he had made that mistake, particularly because his reputation as being like this intelligence expert.
Hey. Everybody can be susceptible to an op. That's how it works. Especially, as you said, the biggest piece is when you know that the thing that you're saying is plausible and should be probable. And that was kind of the fun for me.
Can we combine that with, you had an online posting about Randy Fine, the newly elected congressman from District 6 here in Florida. And there was a pushback that who's going to run against him. And you said that Steve runs more miles than Randy Fine does, so he'd be a good
I said you run more miles in a week than he's run in his life. And I'm going to stand by that.
And it's probably accurate. But it's then I shared with you a Forrest Gump GIF, knowing that it was just you giving me a hard time for running too many miles. But people read into that was me announcing that I was running for office.
I know, but it was literally it was literally Forrest Gump running with the words "I was running," which I do love a good Forrest Gump run. But
he's up there with Val Kilmer, Tom Hanks.
You ought to do a flat top, Steve. You ought to do a flat top. Could I talk you into getting a little bit tighter on the sides?
High fade, flat top.
Yeah, just Give me in honor of Val Kilmer. Let's do it for a month. Let's declare the month of April for you to be flat top April, and just it might be more aerodynamic too. I don't know. There's probably an advantage.
If it would give me those ping pong skills, where I could translate to pickleball, where my wife and eldest son continue to dominate me and my younger son. Like I might do it just because I'm that competitive.
This is not it. Okay, this is where you're heading then. If you're getting dominated by your family on pickleball, so here's where I was going with this. Laura Loomer, far right activist, allegedly. I think so. Here's the funny thing about Laura. She's a dog with a bone when she finds something. And she's right sometimes, she's wrong sometimes, like everybody. And I have no problem with her meeting with Trump. I have no problem with her making a recommendation. And if that recommendation actually held true, Trump's got a lot of good people around him right now, smart people. He's making far less mistakes, I think. So that's good. If she is the version of far right, right? I wanted to go find someone that I would consider far left. I don't really care what the media does. And so I found this guy. He's all the things. He's fat because of racism. He's dumb because he can't help it, because his ideas are bad. And so you tell me if this constitutes far left. This is on The Breakfast Club. This is Eli Mistel, brilliant, making his recommendations for a legal system where we just ignore the Constitution, because why not? The Constitution is old and stupid and made by white men. You ready?
He said that
South Africa got over apartheid. Did they just go back to their Afrikaner racist constitution, be like, oh, we just need a couple of amendments. We just need a couple of changes here to make it work. No, they threw the whole thing out and started again, this time asking everybody. Wow. This time having a completely new delegation of all of the people of South Africa, not just the white folks, but not no white folks. Mm-hmm. And they came up with a new constitution. It's one of the reasons why the South African constitution is generally thought of as one of the best constitutions in the world. And ours continues to be a piece of crap.
So what laws would you kick out immediately? What laws are you saying it needs to get the fuck out of here?
Yeah, so the first one I have in my book is that I want to eliminate every single voter registration law. All of them.
Yeah, that's retarded. And so is that guy. We're going to talk about something that's not Patriot Coolers, my friends over there who actually don't think America sucks. Yeah, they think it's actually pretty awesome, and they put it on every one of their cups. If you guys want to get one of these, it's the 19-ounce coffee mug. It fits great in your coffee holder. It's the ones that that I've been using. I've got one for me, one for the wife. We take them to church every Sunday. That's the only time we're in the car at the same time. PatriotCoolers.com is the website. KYLE is the promo code. Save yourself 10%. My bet is that Steve Friend probably also has one sitting right next to him. Hold on, stand by, put him on the screen. Steve, go ahead, just whip it out. There it is. Boom.
Got that my OD and then the Dash suspendable sticker. From our friend Garrett O'Boyle.
That is that's the 30-ounce. They got great lids. They've got great products. They keep ice cold. They keep hot beverages hot. Sometimes too hot to drink until after church. You got to wait an hour or two because they don't cool down at a normal rate. And if you guys want to go ahead and support our sponsors and support us, check out patriotcoolers.com. Longest sponsor with our program. Good people, good folks. We're gonna try to get like some footage inside of their facility sometime. They laser etch all those things domestically, but maybe things might go a little bit more expensive. Why would that be? Because we're going to do tariff pretty soon, but not before we talk about Signalgate one more time. Trump administration said they put it to bed, and this is the headline, Steve. The Pentagon Inspector General is going to investigate Pete Hegseth's role in the Signal chat leak. What is our experience with inspectors general? Do you have a pretty prominent... Will they find wrongdoing, you think?
The government will investigate the government and determine that the government didn't do anything wrong. And even if they did do something wrong, they don't have the authority to make them change it.
Who would they recommend prosecution of this government to?
The Department of Justice, controlled by the government.
This sounds like a constitutional crisis. Maybe we should throw out every law before 1965.
Which would include women's suffrage, which discount Don King was talking about on The View when he was pumping out his book. Also the 13th Amendment, so I guess he'd be in favor of slavery. And then he cited South Africa as having the best country because it didn't involve white people in there. And South Africa is generally considered to be kind of in a race war right now. And he could export himself there anytime he wants to experience that because according to him, our country is a piece of crap that allows him to speak freely his really awful ideas.
He doesn't look like he's suffering based on that big
doesn't
body.
Look like he's hungry
around.
Either.
No, he might be though if he moves to a place that doesn't allow just spewing forth of ridiculous ideas to generate significant amounts of wealth.
You mean like taking farms away from people because of the pigment in their skin and giving it to people who don't know how to farm? What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing could go wrong. Let's do one more story before we do tariffs, because why not? And this is kind of fun little coverage. RFK Jr., we always knew he was going to catch a little bit of flack. So he says that they needed to lay off HHS people because Americans are getting sicker, which means HHS didn't do a good job. And NBC says that he's weakening America's childhood vaccine system. This is the coverage that we're getting on RFK Jr. right now. I had to try to find anything else. The reason I tell you this is because basically 90% of all the websites are just tariff meltdowns. It's like China 34%. That's why tariffs are in the background over the top of our own background. It's just tariffs everywhere. If I type in tariffs into the image search, it shows a dozen different versions of shipping containers, and they are all covered with some version of a tariff tape or like scare tactic, like it's a crime scene.
It's not like a version of economic theory, right or wrong, that's been employed for hundreds of years.
Yeah, no. It's not like that. It's just like it's the end of the world. Kind of interesting. We're hearing that the layoffs at HHS, with 10,000 people laid off, they were a HHS-wide bloodbath. So that's even, I think, what if we were going to do we did the left-right continuum, what is the extreme of getting fired, with purge being at somewhere and then bloodbath? Where would you put these things on the scale?
Well, it depends who's doing the firing, right? Like if they are ending your employment and you are a FBI whistleblower, then you were probably a traitor to the country, per Stacey Plaskett. So that's justifiable because you're just a self-anointed or self-described whistleblower. There's no legal protections. But if you are a feckless government bureaucrat working for an institution that necessitated a movement within the country that went by the moniker "Make America Healthy Again," indicating that America is not as healthy as it once was, and you failed in that role as a steward of the government in overseeing the health of the nation, that would be a constitutional crisis, right?
The conservative estimates are that 8,000 people in the DOD were removed because of the vaccine mandate specifically. That doesn't count anybody that got disciplinary actions and they were removed, then they couldn't directly tie it to the same thing. And then, of course, there were tens of thousands of people who self-identified and walked away. And we interviewed Cameron Smith, and we had Johnny Franks on before. So this is not like a...
Not a threat to national security at all to lose.
No, not at all. I heard
thousands.
I heard that if you get rid of people's jobs, that they might go to the enemy and sell that information when they were sensitive clearance holders.
Can we zero in on that for 1 second?
As much as you want.
Could somebody other than our friend Garrett O'Boyle, is there anybody who's a better example who could feel a level of betrayal from their federal government that might actually justify them saying, you know what? This country that I have fought and bled for and watched my friends die for and my entire adult life served, did this to me and my family, put us in such a vulnerable position. The country, I didn't leave the country left me. I don't necessarily feel like I've betrayed the country by going over to some nefarious actor who's offered me some level of compensation. And Garrett, if you propose that to him, would say, no, that's treason because I'm still an American. And nobody else who works for HHS has those level of gripes. And yet we're told that, they're going to hold the country hostage here to have their job that they're not entitled to. The job that's just not worth doing, that we don't want done. And if they do have a job, they're not even doing a good job at it. Now they're going to go over to China and give them our nation's secrets.
They could. That could be the thing. Yes. No, nobody justifies it that has any sort of meaning. And then I always took it as a threat. I kept reading it as a threat. And I don't know, I guess they can't threaten anybody because what are they going to threaten with the vaccine problem? They're going to say, kids are going to be sick. It always comes back to people will die at the end of the day.
People need kidneys.
People need kidneys. It's sad, but it's true. What is the line? I'll have to remember the line though. Because this senator is hoarding one more than she needs is maybe one of the great.
People look left and right when they cross the street, but they rarely look up.
They rarely look up. It's such a good, everything about that is a really great piece. Okay, I'm going to do a read for our friends over at my Patriot Supply. I actually got to talk to the folks that are running the brand over there, and it made me realize a couple things I didn't know about their products, so I'm going to throw them on the screen right now. Folks, you can go to preparelikekyle.com. You're going to hear a lot of talk about economic disasters, the possibility of fresh produce not showing up over the next little period of time because of these tariffs. If you want to go ahead and get yourself squared away as a personal insurance policy, one of the neat things about My Patriot Supply is that they actually are almost completely vertically integrated. They make their own foods, they pack their own foods, they ship their own foods. It basically comes in so they can control every single part of that process, and they're going to be less worried about tariffs. But you never know what's going to happen in your local grocery stores. They can go empty overnight. We've seen that happen. The worst time to prepare is in the aftermath of any disaster. In fact, I'm reminded of Robert Redford when he's talking to his secretary in Spy Game, and he says, "When did Noah build the ark? Before the rain." That's when you do it. Smart Americans trust My Patriot Supply, helps them prepare before a crisis, and right now they're making it really easy. This offer goes away, I think, after the end of this weekend. It's actually a really good offer to get into. 4-week emergency food kit. You're going to get 4 additional 72-hour food kits completely free. You can use them for training. You can use them to stage around the place. You can use them in a bug-out bag. You can use them in a vehicle and so on. It gives you an idea of what the food tastes like and how to prepare it, and that's a good idea. You never want to go out and try a new dance at the prom. It's what one of my shooting instructors said. In the same way, you might want to give yourself some practice. It's 2,000 calories per day. The food is easy. It is much more nutritious. They are much more online. I actually took some notes here, and I actually wanted to share this for you guys. I say actually a few times. I don't want to do that. They use less. They've actually gone to all natural flavorings. They're not using any of the fake processors and things like this because they can actually control it. What the reason they started these companies, it turns out, was that people were gouging folks in the prep sphere. And so My Patriot Supply was an opportunity to offer better stuff. The thing that sold me, though, was cost per calorie. And the fact that it's going to actually last for 25 years, that they actually test these things, they go through, they've got all kinds of quality assurance. It's peace of mind. Like I said, it's your insurance policy. PreparelikeKyle.com. If you guys want to get this deal, there'll be another deal next month. It's different, it's more expensive, and it's for a much broader array of food. So if you want to get something small, a starter pack right now, 4-week emergency food kit, 4 free 72-hour food kits, preparelikeKyle.com. Check it out. All right, so Steve, we're back on here talking about this. Should we do tariffs? I mean, I've been teasing it. I just want to...
Let's get into it. I mean, you have to put the crime tape over.
This is tariffs, dude. Listen, Trump's tariffs. What is the article or the episode entitled? Trump's tariffs traumatize trade, right? Like, wow.
Nice alliteration.
That was me doing that. Okay, so Donald Trump's tariffs prompt China to retaliate with 34% tariffs levied on U.S. imports going in there. Rare earth elements, export controls, so they're not going to ship us the things that we need. They're going to bump up the price, blah, blah, blah. Trump tariffs live updates. You know, whenever the most important news is over at ABC, they do live updates. NBC does the same thing. So this is what it looks like. The thing that I found most interesting about the tariff problem is this. The United States economy. Oh, it added 228,000 jobs in March, far above the estimates. They expected 140,000 jobs, so they almost doubled the expectation.
And
it's almost like things are going the right way.
Later on, that it's probably even more.
Yeah, because we've got people inside the government that are going to push this stuff out. What has been your overall take? You've got a wife that works in the import-export world. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. My wife, she works at import-export of fertilizer, and she's not a consumer of the day-to-day news like you and I are. And so sometime around Liberation Day, she was looking at the prices and was like, what the heck just happened here? Which I think is going to be the ultimate challenge for the messaging. Look, right or wrong when it comes to tariffs, I'm not going to weigh on it. After all, I'm not some sort of Nobel laureate economic expert here on how the tariffs work. We just are all going to have to wait and see. And the president has that autonomy to make that decision, and we're going to have to see the effect of it. I think, though, the one element that people are overlooking is in the instant gratification culture that we live in. I think it's pretty obvious that there is going to be short-term pain. I don't know if it's going to extend long-term, but there will be short-term pain. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if they're able to message that, because you have people that are financing their Grubhub right now. You have the ability to put Grubhub on payments. And you're going to tell them that in the era of Biden inflation, prices are going to go up even more. That might be a tougher pill to swallow than I think the Trump administration is anticipating.
Yeah, a lot of people handle money poorly. I actually had a guy on X the other day who's a Canadian, which is kind of funny, and he had this statement to me, and he was saying something snarky, and so I went and looked at his timeline. I'm like, who is this guy? And his second tweet was, my wheels are wobbly, my floorboards are about to rust out, I've got 200,000 kilometers on a 2012 Kia Sportage, and if it goes out, I can't afford to get a new vehicle. I make good money, I handle money well, but I'm maxed out on all my credit cards, and my credit limits and my credit score goes down every month. And it's like, I don't think you understand how money works, dude. No. And then he went out there and goes, let me just be clear. I pay $1,500 a month in housing insurance. I pay $1,600 a month in car insurance for a used piece of garbage. And I went like, yeah, no. Like, you can't afford a car. Some people can't. In my lifetime, I have not been able to afford a car.
You're really bad with numbers. You
walked.
probably think that calorie deficit doesn't result in weight loss because because I don't speak metric very well, but I do round numbers and math okay, and I think that's only got 120,000 miles on it, and you think the bottom is rusted out? I don't know what your car care and maintenance habits are, but you make really bad decisions.
He also then told me that in Canada, they have a 40% tax on all of their income, and I was like, oh, I think I've seen the problem. The problem is you live in Canada.
You should probably vote for
Statehood.
Fidel Castro's kid again.
You should probably, vote for America 51st statehood. Listen, not everybody can do math, Steve. Not everybody is blessed with the ability to keep track of things, including people that may or may not be in charge of America's highest office and or at least hold the position. So here's Joe Biden talking about inflation. Remember, when he entered the presidency, inflation was about 1%. By the way, that also means that your money is always losing value. Even when the government says they're doing the great job of managing the money supply, your money is still slowly losing its value, which is incredible.
Zero sense that as you evolve and you develop best practices in industry, you would think that the prices to develop and to market and to produce goods would come down, ergo the prices would come down. So we should have deflation happening, but that's never happened in the history of our economy.
We just don't like it. Here's Joe Biden talking about how, it's not his fault that the economy was the way it was. And then we're going to do the Nobel laureates, as you mentioned, who really loved his economics plan, which seems to work out really well.
Talk of inflation. The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down. No one's talking about this great, I don't know anybody, including Larry Summers, who's a friend of mine, who's worried about inflation. Bringing down inflation was 9% when I came to office. 9%.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Who agreed with Joe Biden's plans? You'll remember there were a lot of very famous, brilliant economists that did. It's the only thing we have to negotiate on amongst ourselves is the number of Nobel laureates that actually agreed with Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda. Do you have the number in your head, Steve?
Of Nobel laureates, it's got to be 1,700.
Okay, that feels high. I don't know how Price is Right works.
I was going to say 51 intelligence officials, but I figured they probably were able to corral more from the academia.
Okay, what I want you to do is actually total up the numbers that are negotiated between spokespeople for the Biden administration. Let's see if we get close to 17. Did you say 1,700?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to see if we get to 1,700. We're going to start with 15. I think we're going to get to just keep adding the teenage numbers up here. Here we go.
Today, 15 recipients of the Nobel Prize in Economics released a letter in support of the president's Build Back Better plan,
including 4 Nobel Prize winners recently highlighted in an open letter.
17 Nobel laureates who have conveyed this will help address inflation.
14 Nobel laureates in economics said it'll actually bring down the cost. It will reduce the deficit, and it will totally paid for, and it's going to reduce inflation. 17 Nobel laureates in economics. 15 Nobel laureates in economics released a letter yesterday. 17 Nobel Prize winners in economics have said, spontaneously wrote to me together, and 14 Nobel laureates in economics wrote to me telling me that it will also diminish the impact of inflation. And I told you about the impact of 17 Nobel laureates saying it's going to decrease inflation, not increase it. And this is from 15 Nobel laureates in economics. Quote, because this agenda, the one I'm talking about, mine, 17 Nobel winners of the economics have written a letter just about 3 weeks ago to me affirming that this bill would ease long-term inflationary pressures. 14 Nobel laureate economists in economics saying this is going to what I'm proposing to reduce the inflation.
Okay, I got to 207, but I don't think we got to 1,700. How hard is it to keep track of one number like that? Well, he said it over and over again.
And
he changed it in the same speech.
His brain is made out of pudding, but even before he started to definitely lose all his faculties, you're talking about a man who said that it was all about 3 letters, JOBS, jobs.
Right. What's wrong with that?
I mean, there's 176 Nobel laureates.
176,000. Nancy Pelosi actually used to like tariffs. Did you know that?
Of course.
Nancy Pelosi used to be not whatever she is today. This is back when the demon that wears the Nancy Pelosi skin cared more about the outer appearance and was like less into vodka, I think. This is Nancy Pelosi in 1996, which is still in my memory. She thought it was a pretty good idea that we protect ourselves from, China and other countries. You want to hear how people's position change as Trump is a freaking 1990s Democrat. I'm just going to keep saying it.
At least our vice president wasn't negative years old when she said it.
That's true. Okay. He was still a child, though. Enjoy this.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo? As I mentioned, it's about jobs, proliferation, and human rights. And there are those who say we shouldn't link human rights and trade and proliferation and trade. I disagree. But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status for several reasons that I'd like to go into now. I'd like to call the attention of our colleagues to this chart on the status quo that the business community is asking each and every one of us to endorse today. Right now, we have a $34 billion trade deficit with China, the 1995 figure. It will be over $40 billion for 1996. Since the Tiananmen Square massacre, this figure has increased 1,000%, from $3.5 billion then to about $34 billion now. In terms of tariffs, I think it's interesting to note that the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%, whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%.
I didn't hear her teeth clack one time. I guess that's an age thing. That sounded pretty damn reasonable to me, Steve Friend.
It was a coherent, well thought out debate. And again, I'm not a Nobel laureate. I think we're just going to have to wait and see how this plays out. But she certainly articulated her position, which sounds a lot like the position of Stephen Miller in the Trump administration right now.
Yeah, a little bit of protectivism. What about someone who's kind of a communist? What about the Bernie Sanders? Could he possibly have changed his position, saying that Donald Trump doesn't care about the workers? Is that possible?
Yes, but before
What's
he wasn't a millionaire,
what makes him talk like
so
that?
It was different.
Oh, you think he's got some good stock options? This would be a great time for him to have shorted some things, or maybe to make an investment now towards the bottom, so he could actually, what is Nancy buying into right now?
How much shorting did Eye Patch McCain do on April Fool's Day?
It's unclear. It's unclear yet, but we'll find out. There are people that track this sort of thing. Here's Bernie, 2008. Turns out he also thinks that tariffs should protect American workers.
Further, what they have said is that we need to not worry about manufacturing in America, because what we should establish is a policy of unfettered free trade. We don't need tariffs. What we need is to allow corporate America the freedom to throw American workers out on the street. People who are making 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, healthcare, pensions, throw them out on the street, because somehow, Madam President, we are going to create wealth in America and good paying jobs in America as we shut down plants. We move to China, corporations there pay workers 20, 30 cents an hour, and we bring the product back into this country. And anyone who goes shopping in a mall knows how difficult it is today to find the product made in America. But that is the philosophy. And I have to say, in that regard, the champion, and he is honest on this one. Senator McCain has been criticized recently for not being the most honest candidate we have seen in terms of his ads and so forth. He has been honest on this one. He is the lead advocate of unfettered free trade. And that's an also important part of this right-wing ideology, that it is good for America that corporations can go to China and bring products back into this country.
What do you think?
That sounds like J.D. Vance, but definitely not negative years old, maybe with a slight Vermont distinct accent. If you just took the
He's from
transcript
New York. He's from New York.
If you took the transcript from that and said that J.D. Vance issued these remarks yesterday, I think you could probably get more people than you fooled on April Fool's.
I agree with you. Certainly all Democrats are not hypocrites, right? That wouldn't be the case.
I mean, certainly not all politicians are hypocrites.
We're moving through time. That was 1996 with Nancy, back when her skin fit properly. This is Bernie Sanders in 2008. He looks exactly the same as he does today.
He's ageless.
Yeah, he's pickled like a crypt keeper, isn't he? He just doesn't seem to get any worse. Listen, maybe he's got a portrait somewhere that is aging while he's not, because he's basically locked on at the same age for at least the last couple decades. What about Chuck Schumer? Chuck Schumer, big fan of Donald Trump and his tariffs, you think?
Mayor Quimby loves him some Donald Trump.
Loves him. Donald Trump is actually closer to Donald Trump on this policy in 2018, before his mind was melted, closer than he was with Bush and Obama on the same topic. Not my words. I'm getting a lot of this stuff from Maze Moore over on X, who put together an outstanding dig into these people's historical positions. Here's Chuck Schumer prior to losing his damn mind.
Look, I think the president's doing the right thing. China has been taking advantage of us for two decades. They're stealing our intellectual property, which means stealing our good-paying jobs. And I, frankly, am closer on this issue, not on many, but on this issue with President Trump than I was with Presidents Bush or Obama, because they did nothing to tell China off. Now, China, of course, will respond. But if they know we're strong and we're not going to back off, they will back off. They have far more to lose than we do. They have a $300 billion trade surplus with us. So I'm looking out, number one, for jobs. You know, if General Electric moves jobs to China, they're not unhappy, but my New York workers in Schenectady are unhappy. And so you can't let the international business companies who don't give a hoot about where their factories are govern this. You have to do what's good for the American worker.
Is that crazy? That was only like 6 years ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was only like 70 years old when he said that. But, I mean, it's going to be the exact same argument that you'll see from the MAGA right in the influence space and social media and even in Congress. I think you will see basically a complete carbon copy of that argument from the Republicans now.
What about Republicans that have turned into never Trumpers because they got their feelings or their butts hurt?
You talking about the former governor and UN ambassador to governor from South Carolina?
I was thinking more along the lines of the former vice president, who is known to house flying insects on his head. This is
Vice President furrowed brow, pleated pants. Got it.
He was very upset on April 1st that this was about to come into effect, and yet 2021, I think, he was making these comments.
And our president's going to keep fighting for trade deals that are free and fair and reciprocal and are a win for Americans in the city and on the farm. Countries in particular, like China, have been informed that the days of a disproportionate and imbalanced trade relationship with the United States are coming to an end.
So there you go. And of course, that means that NPR, who obviously loves farmers, as long as those farmers happen to be transgender and might want to take hormones and or cut off their genitals, says that tariffs are going to threaten to upend markets, including American farmers and the ones that they depend on, because a lot of American farmers sell off some of their crops to other countries. I guess they enjoy the fact that these things are subsidized by the U.S. government and then tariffed on the other end to make them competitive. We subsidize them to make them competitive because the other end, they're like Americans are paying for it on both ends. You know, I don't know. It's just kind of like where this goes. At the end of the day, we're talking about deficits with major countries. The small countries, I think, will immediately fall in line because what are they going to do? Not have the Americas and a consumer? Like,
I mean, we saw that with Israel, which is a complete head scratcher that Israel, which pretty much owes its existence to the fact that we're here as the big brother, and they're completely surrounded. We give them military aid. We give them actually foreign aid, a lot of it. And they were tariffing us. I mean, that to me is kind of a head scratcher. That why would they think for that would be acceptable? So I think they caved right away. So that smaller countries definitely will. We'll see if it shakes out, or I think we'll probably even see some realignment. It'll be a question of, does BRICS hold the line? Is there going to be an EU merging with China? Well, I mean, they already are, but are they going to actually be open about it? And then we're going to have a complete realignment around the globe. And look, I'm about America only. I know you are as well. They can partner with whoever they want as long as we make our country strong. That's fine.
We've got some smart people in the administration. They seem like they also have a lot of money. They understand how to move a lot of money. They kind of have seen certain things out there. They've got education, the credentialism the left looks for. This is Caitlin Collins talking to the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and he just says, hey, how about you take a breath? This seems like the best. He's actually advocating, what do they used to call it? The Bongino rule, right? Like, just like, hey, dude, just calm down. And he also makes the argument that the people that have the deficit are actually the strongest. This actually lands very true to me, because if you are the one who's been benefiting because you're over, sending supplies into another country, and suddenly that becomes more expensive, the people that were at a disadvantage to begin with are now, they've actually flipped it on their end. We are the bigger consumer. So he makes that argument. Here he is talking to Caitlin Collins. And he also tells people to just hold their horses, which seems totally reasonable. Most people are not going to see this happen right away, overnight. Tell me how this argument lands for you.
And if countries retaliate, which some have said that they would, some have said they wanted to wait and see, what is the White House's response going to be to those countries?
Well, Caitlin, one of the messages that I'd like to get out tonight is everybody sit back, take a deep breath. Don't immediately retaliate. Let's see where this goes, because if you retaliate, that's how we get escalation.
And then it becomes a full-fledged trade war, in your view?
Not a trade war, depends on the country, but remember that the history of trade is we are the deficit country. The deficit country has an advantage. They are the surplus countries. The surplus countries traditionally always lose any kind of a trade escalation. So I did, as a student of economic history or a professor of economic history, I'd advise against it.
So you're essentially saying that they should not retaliate?
I would say that doing anything rash would be unwise.
That seems pretty reasonable.
He was articulating to a liberal white woman from the suburbs that she needed to calm down. I mean, and he did so in a way where she didn't take umbrage with that. But he makes a good point. I mean, look,
that's
if
a
you
sophisticated tactic, by the way, Steve. That's a sophisticated tactic to not get outrage from a white lady
that
telling
is
him,
a
calm down,
cagey veteran move right there.
Yeah.
Newlywed gents. Take note of that.
Take some note. That man has been, he's had success in this field. Well
He's
done.
an old war horse.
Mm-hmm. Truly.
But as an analogy, I guess he's articulating that America, as the consumer by and large, is the customer walking into a store, and the store says to us, well, we're just going to jack up our prices on you. And when we say, well, we have our money and we're just not going to spend it here. And that entitles you to a certain level of power from his perspective.
You know the joke, Steve, is that he's gay. Does that make him? Is that why he's most capable? Because his spouse could actually physically fight with him, could actually do real damage.
Because he's never going to encourage his spouse to calm down and have it end in a clawing session. Okay.
So I had this funny little moment with one of my buddies. I was like, the problem and the reason why you see a lot of like sexual deviance on the in the homosexual community. This is just my take on it, and this actually plays well into our palate cleanse. But I was like, it's not because they're inherently deviant; it's because there's no brake.
No brakes,
right? There's no brakes in the car. You have two gas pedals,
two accelerators. Yes,
right. You can't fight with other men. Like if you get into a fight with one of your dude friends, it can immediately get physical and dangerous, like right away. And we're sitting there talking to Caitlin Collins, who has been alleged to be a male by some people, not me, of course, but our chat was saying, I don't trust this dude. And people think that it's Scott Pressler. It's not very good.
Two gay guys pushing themselves forward into sexual deviancy is basically the same as managers in the FBI. Nobody around the mahogany desk is willing to say no to the bad idea, ergo, further and further violations of civil liberties happen.
Yeah. Two gas pedals, no brake. It's the easiest way for anyone. Just imagine if you just had a gas pedal and the other option was pushing the other gas pedal. Like that's what we're talking about here. I don't know why I think that's really funny, but I do. Let's see. Constitutional violations. Can we do one? Just the sort of state of affairs in the country. Remember, everything is good as long as you're on the left-hand side. There is no such thing as far left. You can only be far right. These are guys from Abolitionist Rising. They were trying to speak at the U.S. Capitol, outside, in the grass, doing things that I think you're allowed to do, unless you have a message that is not helpful to Capitol Police. Theoretically, the Speaker of the House and the leader of the Senate should be able to stop the Capitol Police, but they don't. and they don't seem to care about the Constitution. Enjoy this little thing. This bothers me. We're going to talk to people from their movement soon. So this is going to be a soon Saturday sit down.
So if
you have more than 30 people,
we'll separate them into little pockets.
That doesn't count.
Hey, chill out, man. I'm just trying to work.
All right, everyone's got to leave the grassy area, please. This area is closed.
Everyone's here individually. Is that correct?
It doesn't matter.
Hey, actually,
you're
just
gonna get yourself arrested.
Actually, just hey, just for right now, just go on the other side of the wall there, and
the grassy area is closed for other reasons, not for your group.
Not for our group.
No, the area is closed today.
Oh, so nobody else is walking through here?
Not today.
You guys are watching that pretty diligently?
That group of school kids that were just here, about 50 of them?
We just got word that it's closed because there's other testing that's going on in the grass.
There's testing going on in the grass?
Right now, we do have to clear this area out. I know what it looks like, but
no,
we do have to
it's not just what it looks like. It's what it is.
I understand.
It's what it is.
It's not what it is. It's what it looks like. We do have to clear this area out.
Our banner,
if you give a call to special
our
events,
banner says all the people who are for Trump are great and all the people who are against Trump are great, and we're just not, we don't care about anything. It just says we like popcorn. That's all it says.
That's not the grass.
On the other side of the road.
The quicker it'll stop. Need you to stop.
And do what we're supposed to do as we peacefully assemble as a group.
I'm Lieutenant Johnson, United States Capitol Police.
Lieutenant Johnson would like us to be quiet, but he doesn't have his bullhorn on.
I don't know where it is in the U.S. code.
Thoughts about cops stopping people from speaking in the one place that they are really supposed to be able to go and make their voice heard. By the way, I see leftists do this shit all the time when I used to live in D.C. or outside D.C.
This is the arbitrary, despotic abuse of power, i.e. tyranny, defined there, and particularly egregious when it is outside Congress, right, on the mall, where it's like the most emblematic area where you're supposed to exercise your free speech, where some of the most famous moments of that, you think about like the MLK speech, the I Have a Dream speech being right there, those very spots. And those are good and faithful servants. Those are members of Police Battalion 101. They're just following orders. I don't think that it was even the lieutenant, but it's definitely not the rank and file bike officers from the U.S. Capitol Police who were there, who are on their own volition saying, I don't think you should be out here. I'm going to infringe on your speech. They were just being told, hey, use whatever lever you have arbitrarily to get these particular people off the grass. And they said, all right, I don't want to risk or jeopardize my future in this elite and premier law enforcement organization. So I'll go ahead. I'm your Huckleberry.
That was a cringy moment for me there, because they're basically glorified security guards. How about campus police? They're kind of security guards as well, even though they have powers to arrest. This happened at a California university. I think it was UC Davis. I'm going to be open to being fact-checked. This is a Turning Point event where Officer Brandon Tatum was talking, or former Officer Brandon Tatum was doing his thing. He was engaging with people. Watch the police officers not do anything back. I'll actually have you call play-by-play by what you see. Have you seen this video yet?
I haven't.
Perfect. Steve's going to call play-by-play. You're going to hear a bunch of angry white people come in a mob and destroy the stuff from a black man while the cops watch. It doesn't matter whether you're on the East Coast or the West Coast. As long as you're on the right side of the political aisle, you get to win and do whatever the hell you want. It's like transgender people, right? Like at the bar. You can't look at porn unless you're then you can do whatever you want.
That's right,
okay.
ma'am.
All right. Here you go. Ready? Okay, give me play-by-play here.
So it looks as though there is a giant sign that says all cops are bastards.
Right. So that's Brandon Tatum in the red hat.
Okay, that's Tatum who's standing in the gap.
Boom.
And pushing a bike back from that area as they're now destroying a tent.
He's a big dude.
He's much larger than I thought he was.
Oh, yeah. Look at those cops. What are they doing?
They're just standing there.
They're taking the Turning Point signs. Those things all cost a couple $100 each.
Huh.
Guarantee this is a felony.
Seems like they're allowing the leftists to do whatever they want. They're just being good witnesses, I guess. That's probably how they would articulate it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not preventing a damage to property, violation of civil rights, so ergo not doing their jobs whatsoever. It is interesting to me how all of these things always happen from the communist left. Like, what is your example of a far-right extreme protest turned into a riot in which there was massive damage to property outside of January 6th, which you could articulate was maybe a put-up job? Is there one in your memory? Go.
No, I mean...
But
no.
You would struggle to keep it on one hand in this happening this week from the left.
Right. No. And my thought is that this is why people, one, they should continue to be prepared. Two, it doesn't matter who the president is right now. People who are unhinged all the time. That's just how they operate. They are unhinged people. And it always starts with property and it ends with persons. So
they downplay the property too. They're saying, well, it's just things. It's just things. So why are you worried that we're burning your property?
Yeah, I'm just looking at how big he is. And I can't believe that these bike-toting, like, ninja-masked little pansies decided to step up to, like, an actual man, and it's only because they outnumbered him about 18-1.
They outnumber him.
And he's still engaged with them, and those cops did nothing. Amazing.
Yep, and there's a sense of entitlement there. They're no different than the government workers who feel entitled to have a job. They are rioters. They're probably paid rioters who feel entitled to do what they want because there's never been any repercussions. It's like the reason that so many of these nasty communist leftist women are out of hand, because they've never had to feel the physical ramifications for being a jerk. Whereas, like, if you and I were in some sort of a verbal dispute, like, there would be a line where I wouldn't cross, where I wouldn't insult your wife, because I would know there would be a physical ramification for that. Whereas a liberal, leftist, suburban driving, coexist, bumper sticker, cul-de-sac living, cut my genitals off the children, communist mom would come right up to you and say the most vile, vicious things because she doesn't anticipate there to be a physical consequence.
Steve, this is the line right here. I'm going to play you the line.
What's your name? What? What is your name? Tony! Fuck you, Tony! What's your name? Ezekiel! Fuck you, Ezekiel! Fuck you! Fuck you! Hey, you know what I did last night? You better not bring my mother into this! You know what I did? You better not! I broke that fire over there! Oh! And I fucked your mother next to it! Fuck you, Ezekiel! Fuck you!
That's the line right there, Steve. That's where it gets physical for you, just so you know.
That's where you go, man. That's where Brandon Tatum might be unleashed.
Oh, fully. Yeah, it has to happen. All right, why don't you tell people what you got coming up on the American Radical podcast tomorrow? Are you doing anything related to anything we talked about, or are you doing something else? What you got?
We're doing something else. We actually got Amy Nelson. She's going to come on, and we're doing a rare guest appearance. We don't do it very often, but she had an interesting piece written about her and her family in the Daily Mail. We highlighted it on the show, but we always think it's better to get it straight from the horse's mouth, firsthand account. So a retrospective of her experience and maybe some updates. Amy Nelson, a real suspendable, who's been facing down for 5 years now the Department of Justice, the FBI, Jeff Bezos, and Amazon.
All right, good deal. I've got a quick request for folks. If you're listening to us right now, it's rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow us over there. You can also follow my friends in the AMRADs, which is AMRADPod, so follow them. Check us out over on YouTube. I see we're getting more and more live viewers every day. It's awesome. YouTube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed if you're listening. You can follow us on Locals. It's KyleSeraphin.com. We do not have a Sunday sit-down this week. We're working on a good one that'll come up next week, so make sure you're following us on all those places. You'll get it early if you're on the Locals. And lastly, Spotify, it's KyleSeraphinShow.com. If you want to send it to a friend, just send the link. It'll open up Spotify. It's the best place to follow us if you're looking for both video and audio and the after, sort of the replay and all of that. So we do appreciate those people who are watching. I know Steve appreciates it as well. Steve, I got a palate cleanse that's kind of fun. It has a little bit to do maybe with our Treasury Secretary. I don't think it's going to work, but it's still a good song. You're not a big Christian or kind of country Christian rock fan. Is that what you told me?
I'm not. I'm more into what my wife is, which is like angry boy music, as she characterizes it.
Dude,
but if it's got a good tune, we'll do it.
I picture your wife, folks, if you don't know, Steve's wife's Ukrainian. I picture her listening to nothing but club music, like Euro, techno, club music.
I give her a hard time for that every day. And I'm like, yeah, the glow sticks and the oops, oops.
She's not into it?
She's like, no, that's not how it works at all.
How very non-Soviet,
ugly American.
Yeah, she just likes, I call it daddy hug me music.
Yes.
The really angry stuff, Drowning Pool and all that.
I mean,
that's what
Phil Labonte over at Tim Pool would probably, he's got a fan in her.
Outstanding. Okay, good enough. Well, this is a little bit of a different kind of a musical thing as we send it off into your weekend. We'll just send this out to all the listeners that need to be told. It may not work, but you could still try. Turn your life to Jesus here. You can bop your head along, Steve. I'm leaving you on screen.
Said, son, I know you're growing. I ain't got time for no home mowing. You gotta get down on your knees now, boy, and pray the gay away. He said you gotta pray the gay away now. Each and every day you gotta let the Lord come inside you now. God's the only way. You gotta give your life to Jesus and stop dreaming about being. You got to
We've played it before, but I really like that song. It's so catchy.
Thank you very much. I had that in my head all weekend long.
You're welcome. I hope you have a great weekend, bud. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right, folks, that's it for the show. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Go out and hang out with your kids. Go love your neighbors and love yourself and do something outside and get off the internet. We're going to do the same thing here. We'll see you on the other side of it. Like I said, no Sunday sit down. So we'll see you on Monday at 9:30 Eastern time here for the Kyle Seraphin Show. God bless you.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.